All right, so let me know once you guys can see the screen.
Yes, I can see it.
All right, thanks. Thanks for the confirmation. So welcome again to Zero to Lab. This is the pathway to CCI. So Christian and I, we created this program because when we were planning to create something new, we observed that there are so many bootcamp style courses out there where you actually go there for 5 days or 7 days, maximum 10 days, and you are basically bombarded with the lots and lots of information, sometimes 8 to 10 hours, 12 hours every day, and you get very little chance to reflect on what you're learning or to practice it and to have some questions. And even they do have like Q&A sessions, but there is not enough time to actually practice it, internalize it, imbibe it, and then have some questions or any kind of comfort level with the technology. So we thought we need to create something which is a little bit slow paced and which concentrate on in-depth learning, followed by lots and lots of hands-on practice, so that you not only you learn the concept, you immediately apply it, and then of course that will create more questions, and then you have some time to get the answers for those questions. So that actually was the genesis of Zero to Lab. And in this course, that's why we go week by week, concentrating on a particular technology every week. And not only we cover the in-depth theory, we also back it up with the configuration lab. So every week you will see there will be a lab. So it's a completely hands-on approach. That's why the name is Zero to Lab, because we want to make sure that you can pass the CCI lab after completing this course. And for the theory part, I always like to use the formula of what, why, and how. So no matter from what level you are coming in, maybe you are already CCNP certified, maybe you are already on your journey to learning a lot of CCI topics as well, or maybe you are just starting your CCNP journey and want to go with the CCIE preparation as well. So irrespective of what is your level into different technologies, I'm going to start it from scratch. So for example, if I'm starting DMVPN or SD-WAN or QoS or BGP, we will start it from scratch and we will take it all the way to the level that we need for passing the CCI exam. So what is the technology? Why do we need it? Like what problem is it solving? And then of course, once this is clear, how to configure it. This will be the approach we will take for every particular topic. So first of all, we need to understand that what exactly are we preparing for. So we are preparing for CCI Enterprise Infrastructure exam, right? CCI EI, which used to be called CCI Routing and Switching earlier. So this exam is divided into two parts, and I'm talking about the complete picture. Like you need the qualification exam, the qual exam, and then you can book the lab exam, right? So earlier, what used to happen? There used to be a separate CCNP certification with three exams: route, switch, and T-shoot. And then after that, you can actually attempt the CCI qual exam, which was a separate written exam to be qualified to book the CCI lab. But now what happened is that they have integrated the CCNP and the qual part. So the qualification exam is actually your Encore exam. So Encore 350-401, the latest version just recently came out this month. Last month, version 1.2. So if you pass this exam, then not only you are on your journey to become CCNP certified, but this also gives you 3 years to book the CCI lab at any point of time. So you don't need to prepare and pay extra for a CCI qual exam. So that's a good thing. And once you pass the qual exam, then you can actually book the CCI lab exam. So the lab exam is currently version 1.1, CCI Enterprise Infrastructure. And this exam is 8 hours exam. And this particular course, Zero to Lab course, is designed to prepare you for the lab exam. But the good thing is that when you are learning to configure things, you are not going to just cram all the commands or just learn them by heart. We are going to go in depth in theory and understand the logic behind every topic as well. So you will be well prepared for Encore as well while you are preparing for your CCI Enterprise Infrastructure using this Zero to Lab course, right? So let's talk about the lab exam. It's, as I mentioned, it is an 8 hours completely hands-on exam. So you will see that in this exam, it is divided into two parts. So the first part is called the design part, And design part is going to be the first 3 hours when you go to attempt the exam. And in these 3 hours, you are going to face multiple choice questions, drag and drop questions, and some kind of email exchange between network administrator and network manager, some kind of employees complaining something, and they might show you some output of some devices. So basically, no configuration is needed. Here, you need more observational skills and the fundamental foundational knowledge. Because, for example, if the employee is sending you an email saying, "Hey, my OSPF is not working," and or there are routes are down, then you can actually check the output of the routers, and you need to know what needs to be checked for OSPF neighborship to come up. Or if the DMVPN tunnels are not coming up, or EIGRP is flapping over DMVPN tunnels, or a particular IPsec tunnel over the SD-WAN is down. So you need to know what exactly are the areas you can check. So that's where the foundational knowledge or the theoretical knowledge comes handy, because yes, you need to know the configuration as well, but you need to know what is the overall life cycle of that protocol. Like when two routers become BGP neighbors, what exactly are the parameters which must match, what are the parameters which must be unique, and what are the other parameters which must be present. So if you know these things, you can quickly check those areas and see if there is any issue into the neighborship. So you don't need any configuration in this part. You don't click on the devices and you don't configure them, but you need to answer some questions based on the knowledge of the technology that you have acquired in preparing your CCI lab exam. So the actual configuration comes into the second part, which is the deploy, operate, and optimize. So in this part, it is the remaining 5 hours. And in this part, you are going to have three major sections. I like to call them the routing and switching section, although officially they are not named like this. They are just section 1, 2, and 3. But basically the core technologies. So in the first part, the routing and switching, I like to call it, are all the core technologies which are there for ages. For example, you will have to build upon layer 2. So starting with VLANs, trunking, MAC address table management, Ether channel, fast hop redundancy protocols, spanning tree protocol, all these configuration, multiple spanning tree, span, RSpan, all these layer 2 technologies you need to set up first. And then you will move to layer 3, where you will configure routing protocols like EIGRP, OSPF, BGP, both on IPv4 and IPv6. And then on the top of that, you will configure VPN technologies like MPLS, L3 VPN, DMVPN, dynamic multipoint VPN, and also IPsec side-to-side tunnels might be there, GRE tunnels could be there as well. And apart from this, you will configure multicasting on this, quality of service, and some other IP services like network address translation, IP/SLA, policy-based routing, VRF-aware routing, or a VRF Lite, basically using VRF without the MPLS concept. So don't worry if these any of these words are alien to you. We are going to cover them in depth with their understand with their logic, understanding, and also the configuration. So I'm just explaining you that the routing and switching section is quite huge. That's what I want to mention here. And although it is the traditional routing and switching, so this is not the new topic like software defining networking, but it is quite big, and it is the part which will take the most time in the exam, because all the services like DHCP and network address translation all also will be into the same part. So it is the older technologies, but it will take the most time. And then comes the newer technologies like software defined networking, where basically you decouple the control plane and the management plane from the devices. So you don't need to individually manage the devices, whether they are on the LAN side or on the WAN side. You can actually manage them from a central location called the controller. And when you do that, that is called software defined networking, decoupling the management plane and control plane and putting them into a central location, right? So interestingly, although SDN is a newer technology and there are many new parameters and terminologies we will need to learn, but at the end of the day, it is mostly GUI, graphical user interface, right? So it's going to be easier to learn and do in the exam once you have the practice compared to the routing and switching part, which is mostly CLI, and it's a lots of configuration there, right? And then last part is programmability. So in programmability, we are going to learn exactly what are the data structures that we use. So of course, when we want to configure a router or a switch, we cannot send our instructions in normal English language, right? We need to use a structure which the routers also understand. So the instructions are actually defined into the Yang data models. So we are going to understand what is Yang data models. We'll also see that the exact structure that we use, the data models, which is called, or data structure, which is called like XML, YAML, or JSON, JavaScript object notation. So we'll see how exactly we can structurize uh, our instructions that we want to send to the devices. And then, of course, you need a transportation protocol to send these instructions to the devices. So we will see that there are two options: netconf, which works over TCP, and RESTconf, which actually also works over TCP, but it is over HTTPS. So most of the time, the port 443 is open in the devices. So RESTconf is slightly advanced than netconf. Netconf is there for ages. It has been used before as well, but we can use it to send the instructions to the device, like opening some VTY lines, or shutting down a port, or configuring BGP or OSPF from a remote location. We can send all kind of instructions using netconf or RESTconf. We will also see what kind of software do you need on the computer or the client side to send these API calls to the routers and switches. So we'll see that we can use the curl CLI command, CURL, or we can also use Postman. It is one of the GUI software we can use to send these API calls to configure devices. But also, to top all of this, we will also see that configuring individual routers or switches using API calls is fun, but it's not scalable. So we need to include Python here. So when we bring Python into the picture, now you can actually do automation of this programmability. Programmability is the capability of programming the router or device or the switch or a device from a remote location, right? It is programmable. But if you want to do it on a large scale, you need to do automation. You need to automate things, and that's where Python comes into the picture. So we'll learn the basics of Python. So if you don't know Python at all, don't worry, we'll get it covered. We'll make sure that we start from scratch, and we know enough so that you can easily create the Python programs sending the RESTconf or netconf or RESTconf API calls to the devices, right? Also, we will see another very interesting aspect of Python, which is called on-box Python. On-box Python is the concept where on the Cisco iOS XE routers, especially CSR 1000 routers, for example, you can configure a container inside the router, which will be running a full-fledged Linux operating system. So it's called the Linux container. And inside the Linux container, we can run Python language, and we can we can send the different API calls to the router, which is hosting the container, and configure it using the Python directly. Or we can create EM scripts. So embedded event management is basically the in-house programming script of routers, but we can combine EEM with Python to make it a very powerful automation system. So we are going to learn all these things into the programmability part as well. And in the exam, although programmability is the newest thing, but it will take the least amount of time for you, because the requirements are only one or two requirements, so it doesn't take more than 15 to 20 minutes in the exam. So as I mentioned, the oldest thing that some of these things you already learned in CCN and CCNP, and then many new things are also there, like DMVPN or MPLS or all these things. You don't learn in depth into CCN or CCNP. But yeah, these are still well-known technologies. So that is into the routing and switching part, but that is going to take the most time, right? And we are also going to make sure that we understand everything in depth, week by week, concentrating on individual technologies. This is called single protocol labs. So we are going to cover single protocol labs every week first, so that we feel comfortable into individual technologies: EIGRP, OSPF, BGP, SD-WAN, SDA, or programmability. And then, of course, we will do the multi-protocol labs, which are like full exam-like mock labs. So you will see that everything is built one thing upon other. Just to give you some examples, for example, uh, for single protocol labs, we are going to use a topology like this, where you can see that we have multiple routers connected to each other, and some IP addressing is pre-configured, so you don't need to waste time into configuring IP addressing. And this is what I was mentioning, Reinal, earlier also, that the OVA that I sent, if you import, or if you can import that one, you will have these topologies pre-built with the images already there, licensed, and ready to use right away. So you don't need to waste any time into setting up this the structure before getting into the technology itself, right?
Okay.
So, for example, this is the base topology, right? So we are going to use the same topology for most of the, for example, layer three practicals. Why are we going to stick to the same topology? Because it's not a design exam, right? They are not actually expecting you to learn the topology uh, quickly and then also configure the technologies as well. So you can actually learn the topologies beforehand, and then you can just concentrate on understanding the data flow, the packet flow, the control plane and data plane relationship between the devices using different routing protocols and VPN technologies. For example, going to use the same topology, but if I'm discussing, let's say, BGP, so one of the BGP topics is configuration. So if we are discussing configuration, I will use the same topology, but I'll send you a new diagram where I can show you the boundaries of different autonomous systems. Like in AS100, we have three different configurations: 65,001, 2, and 3. And then router 8 is in a completely different organization, AS200, so that you know exactly how the connectivity or reachability will be there between devices. So these kind of topologies will be used in single protocol labs. And in single protocol labs, as the name suggests, we are going to concentrate on a single protocol that particular week. Like if we are discussing about BGP lab, BGP is a huge protocol, so we will take actually multiple sessions to complete it. But just to give you an example, one of the BGP lab I will send you would be something like this, where I'll explain you what you need to do, step-by-step instructions, exam-like instructions that you need to configure, and you need to configure them on this topology using the EVNG software, which I'll explain you in a minute how to use. And of course, I'll also send you along with this the solution file. So the solution file for the same, so that in case if you get stuck, you can always refer to the solution file exactly what needs to be configured on each router. The reason solution file is also given is because it's not a test, right? We are still learning. When you do the lab, that time also you are still learning. So when I'm going to explain you the structure, like when we are into the live session, I will actually explain you how BGP configuration work exactly, and then I'm going to solve this lab step by step. So I'll be going through all the steps and solving it, and I will not be quiet when I'm doing it. I will be explaining every single step as well, that why exactly we are doing the thing that we are doing right now. So you will already have a first-hand experience how exactly it is done, and then during the week when you are doing it on your own, you can always refer to the solution file, and the recording of these sessions will also be available for lifetime. So you can always refer to the recordings as well. So you will have all the support that you need to get to the practice that you need, right? But of course, later also we'll go to the multi-protocol lab. So multi-protocol lab means that all the technologies that we learn, layer two, layer three, uh, and VPN technologies and DMVPN, MPLS, all things will be configured into the same big topology. Like we'll use this topology where we will have an headquarter, data center, internet connectivity, and then using another service provider to connect to the branches, branch 3 and branch 4. And we are using individual routing protocols like OSPF for IPv4, EIGRP for IPv6, BGP to connect between different locations or to have the internet connectivity. And then, of course, to connect to the remote branches, we will be using DMVPN or dynamic multi-point VPN. And this global service provider in the middle will be using MPLS. So this is like the amalgamation of all the technologies or most of the technology that we are going to learn. That's why it is called the multi-protocol lab, right? So this is only one lab where we will concentrate on the routing and switching part. But then, of course, for SDN, we will have another lab where we will be actually using all these controllers like vManage, vBond, vSmart, and then different VHs connecting to the remote location. So we are going to virtualize and use these topologies to practice SD-WAN logic as well. Just to give you an example. So in the exam, although you have a lot of configuration requirement, but devices will be partially pre-configured. So you don't need to configure everything from scratch. Now, in the single protocol labs that we are going to do week by week, we will start from the scratch. The only thing configured will be the IP addressing. So you have to start the other things configuration from the beginning so that you know the complete life cycle of the protocol, right? For example, if I am asking you to configure DMVPN, it's a technology which requires you to configure multi-point GRE, then NHRP, and then IPsec. So you need to know all the steps, and you need to know what exactly is needed for it to work properly and how the show commands look like when it is working properly versus not working, so that in the exam, when it is partially configured, you know the missing pieces because you know the complete life cycle of the configuration, right? But yeah, in the exam, it's you don't need to configure everything from scratch, so you save a lot of time because of that. You just tweak few things to fix things and make it work again. And yeah, there will be instructions just like we will go through every week, and then you need to configure the devices as per the instructions. So that was the introduction to the CCI exam. But how exactly is this course structured? That how exactly are we going to go week by week, and what can you expect from this course? So let's understand the course structure. The first thing that we are going to meet once a week, and this is deliberate because we want to concentrate on a particular technology, go in depth in this technology, do a lab on that, and then give you enough time for the whole week to have some time to do the lab on your own, maybe one time, maybe multiple times, and have your own questions, doubts, or clarity depending on the configuration that you do, right? So that's why it's one session per week, and it will be roughly 2 hours per session. Although I always say in my classes that these classes are topic driven classes, not time driven classes. So it depends on the topic of the day. We might go a little bit overboard also sometime more than 2 hours, and sometimes it might finish before 2 hours as well, depending on the topic. Like if it is a smaller topic like span RSpan, it might take less time. But if it is DMVPN or BGP configuration, for example, or SD-WAN, it might even take longer than 2 hours. So depending on the topic, uh, we might go a little bit plus minus. That's why when I say that the first hour is the instructor-led topic discussion, so I'll be explaining the theory and then top it up or follow it with a lab on the same topic, like we were seeing the BGP lab earlier, single protocol labs. So again, these timers are also indicative. So it could be more than 1 hour for the theory sometime, or less than 1 hour, and the same thing for the configuration. It might take more or less time depending on what we are configuring. But the structure is that we will start a topic. Let's say if today I'm talking about quality of service. So I'll explain you what exactly is QoS, why do we need this, how different types of QoS, integrated service versus differentiated service, what exactly are DSCP markings, what is the difference between queuing, shaping, policing, congestion avoidance, and then after that we will do the configuration. We will have a lab to follow it up in the same session. And after the session is done, I will send you the lab along with the solution file on your email so that you also have a copy of it. So the same lab along with the solution file will be sent to you by email, and then you can try it on the EVNG, right? So if any issues, you can refer to the solution file. And if solution file is not clear sometimes, or you don't know why the answer is the way it is, then you can definitely ask me also. You can watch the recording, or you can actually join our Facebook group where you can ask any questions and I will answer there. Or if you don't have Facebook, you can send me an email also with a question. Or if you're watching the recording on our portal, below every recording, there is a comment section also. You can ask questions there. That also comes directly to me, and I will be more than happy to answer your questions. Right. So how exactly can this program help? How is it different from other programs? So one thing you will notice that, as I mentioned already before, is that in most of the programs, a lot of practice is missing because in the bootcamp style programs, you don't get time to do the practice on your own. So this program actually addresses this issue with the following plan, as we discussed earlier also, that all the single protocol labs configured and explained by me, followed by the configuration by you. So you see, it's a very structured approach. Every week, I am going to explain you the topic and do the configuration, explaining why the configuration is done the way it is done, showing you the show commands and everything. And then during that week, when we don't have the live session, you do the same thing. You repeat that, not to cram anything, but to understand it better. Because when you do it, you understand it better, right? You imbibe more information when you are practicing. So that's the logic or the psychology behind this. And of course, that's the reason why we send you the detailed solution of every practice lab, so that you can always refer to it whenever you get stuck. Because what happens is, generally when we are doing the lab on our own, it is very easy to switch to testing mode. You go into the testing mode, you start testing yourself. Okay, this week we learn EIGRP. Do I remember whatever is taught? Let me try. no, don't do that, because we are still into the learning phase even when you are doing the practice on your own. So when you do the lab and you get stuck somewhere, you don't remember how to configure EIGRP unequal cost load balancing. No worries, go and check the solution file. Why? Because now you know. When you get stuck, you check the solution, now you know. So your brain will remember that I got stuck at this point and I immediately got the answer. So next time I will remember it, right? So the idea is that you need a paradigm shift. You need to have the attitude of learning even when you are doing the lab on your own, right? So the solution files will help you in that. And of course, we will have the question and answer sessions also to clear any doubts. So the order of operation would be like this. If you are doing the labs and you have detailed questions, like you want to paste the configurations and ask detailed questions, the best place would be either the Facebook group, or you can send me an email with all the details, because at least I can see the configuration and answer you in detail also what could be the issue. Uh, or you can, when you are watching the recordings, you can type your questions in the comment section below the recording as well. So we have a portal, www.02it.com, where you can log in with your personal credentials, which Christian must have provided to you, and you will see the recordings of the classes week by week there, and you will have the lifetime access to the recordings, right? So there, that is the second place you can ask, or you can of course ask the question in the session also, Zoom session. But in Zoom session, we have limited time, right? We need to cover a lot of topics and we need to do the configuration. And after that, at last, maybe I can open the Q&A for 5-10 minutes. So if you have some basic questions, how to's or some one-liners, you can ask. But if you have a detailed configuration to show me, or if something is not working, email is a better way, so that I can answer you also in detail instead of a quick answer here, right? Also, we are going to cover the newer topics like SDN and programmability and automation, as I already mentioned these things. Full actual exam like multi-protocol labs to practice. So we will not only do single protocol labs, but then we will bring everything together. We'll start with layer 2, then we'll build layer 3 on the top of that and the other technologies. So just to give you an example, for example, if you see the multi-protocol lab here, for example, this is the first multi-protocol lab where we'll start with layer 2, and then we'll see the solution file is on the second page, and then we'll move to FHRPs, where VRRPG, LBP, how we can have gateway redundancy basically, and then after this we'll move to layer 3. So layer 3 will be OSPF in HQNDC, and then you will see IPv6 configuration in the same, and then after that we will move to BGP. So all these kind of configuration you will see. After this, there is DHCP services and IPv6, and then we have the BGP also. After this, OSPF in the DC, and then after that, BGP, you can see, and so on, right? So after this, you will see there is MPLS and DVPN. So we build one technology on the top of another one over the same topology. So the topology we'll see is same that we are going to use, and we have to build everything on the same topology. This is the multi-protocol lab, and this is something we'll do when it comes to the last part. And of course, in SDA, we are also going to learn the concept of Lisp location ID separation protocol and VXLAN, which is the virtual extensible LAN, which are very important for the control plane and data plane of SDA. So we'll see those examples. In SD-WAN, you will understand the technology of T-lock, what is the OMP, what exactly do we mean by the BFD sessions between devices, and how it is better than the traditional WAN. So all these topics will be also in-depth covered. That's how it makes this program extremely valuable and very useful. Also, I'm
I have
going
a
to give you
question.
troubleshooting tips every now and then. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you cover VXLAN as well?
Yes, yes, we do cover
Okay.
VXLAN because that's
Okay.
part of the SDA. So in SDA, you will see that the control plane is configured using Lisp location ID separation protocol. But in the data plane, we use VXLAN tags. So understanding VXLAN is important for this part.
Okay.
Sure, no problem. So we are also going to have some troubleshooting tips every now and then. So troubleshooting is very interesting because what happens is that troubleshooting directly depends on the foundational knowledge of the technology. For example, if somebody asks you troubleshoot the BGP neighborship, you need to know that what exactly is required for BGP neighborship. The autonomous system number must match. The network must be reachable because you have a TCP session. TCP port number 179 should not be blocked by anyone. The advanced options like route refresh or authentication also must match between devices. So when you know what exactly needs to be checked, you can quickly check those things and you can troubleshoot the flow. So again, we come to the same topic, the life cycle of a particular protocol. If you know, then you exactly know where are the breaks or issues and misconfigurations, and then you can fix them, right? So if you know how a particular thing is supposed to be, and it is not like that, then you can bring it to the its original format by fixing those issues. That's what troubleshooting is. So we are going to make sure that our foundational knowledge of all the technologies is very, very in depth. That's why I like training, because I have been in training business for more than 20 years, and I also do a lot of consultation work. So actually, I am into the implementation also, but training is my passion. The reason is, although it sounds cliche, but the reason is because explaining the technology and how exactly the packet moves, how exactly a particular technology works, that gives me immense joy, and it really helps a lot of students. So that actually makes me happy as well. That's why troubleshooting is something that you will learn uh, uh, by the nature of this program, right? Basically, it's a secondary outcome of learning the in-depth foundational knowledge of the technologies. Also, you will have my support throughout this course. And when you are booking the exam, like whenever we are done with this program with single protocols and multi protocols, then we are going to have an individual one-to-one session with each student where we will discuss that how to plan your exam booking, what should be your plan of practicing multi-protocol labs, how many times, repetition pattern, what areas to concentrate on, and the best way to go ahead and pass the exam. So not only throughout this course, of course, you can ask me any question anytime during this course, but after the course also, you have my email ID. So anytime you have any technical question, feel free to ask me. I have some students who joined my CCI class 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Now also they sometimes send me some questions, and I answer those questions. So you don't need to worry about the support part. That is a big plus for this course as well, that you get extremely active support here, and we are here to actually solve your issues. So there is no other agenda here. I really like to love to help people understand the technologies and go forward in their journey. So you will see that that is going to be a big asset for this program, and it will be a huge benefit for you as well. And of course, the cherry on the top is you have lifetime access to the class recordings. Just to give you an example, anytime there is an update, we actually update our recordings as well as soon as possible. And you, since you will have the lifetime access, you will also get the updated recordings every time. So you can rest assured that if something happens, life happens, and you cannot take the exam for a few years and you want to prepare again, you have all the latest information on the recordings already there, right? Now, how exactly are we going to do all the practicals? Like, this is a heavily hands-on based program, right? So every week we are going to do labs. So what exactly is the tool we are using? So the tool we are using is EVNG on VMware. So we actually recommend to use Windows machine, as I mentioned, or at least the Intel-based Mac machine. The reason is because the VMware workstation software or VMware Fusion for Mac, they actually work pretty well with EVNG, and EVNG perform very well on those. Or if you have a Linux machine, that also works, because there also you can install VMware and use EVNG on that. But yeah, the main protocol, the main software we are using is called EVNG, and it's an emulator. So emulator means that you actually have the real operating system images of routers and switches and SD-WAN devices in the backend. It is just that the front end is virtualized. So you get the complete experience of the device, not just some kind of simulated environment. It's the real emulation of the devices, right? And of course, EVNG is free software. You can download it from evng.net. But the problem is that EVNG is just an empty shell. It has nothing inside it. So you need to acquire somehow the real images of the routers and switches or SD-WAN devices, and then you need to copy them using WinSCP or some tool, because EVNG basically is Linux. It is Ubuntu Linux. So you need to connect to it and then copy using secure copy protocol. And once you copy it, then you need to know enough Linux commands to license these images Without licensing, these images do not boot up or do not work. So that is another learning curve. And then once you are done with all this and you open the GUI of EVNG, you see a blank screen because yes, the router, switches, everything is licensed now, but you need to think of a topology like I was showing you earlier, connect the devices, use IP addressing, and you have to think a topology where you can actually configure all the technologies that you need to learn. So it's a lot of work before you can start working on the CCI topics. So we wanted to make sure that we get rid of all these issues. So we created this compiled OVA image, the link that I sent you. If you download that OVA image, that you just need to import in VMware, and you have a full-fledged working EVNG with all the images copied, licensed, and topologies pre-built with the IP addressing and other important configurations already. Their pre-configuration is already there. So you can directly start with the labs right from the day one, right? So you'll see the topology is already set in EVNG, and the lab file that I'll send you every week will actually, you need to configure them on these topologies. And in the lab, I will mention which topology to use for which particular practical. And of course, during the off days, I mentioned it is recommended that you do the labs again at least a couple of times to feel comfortable about the technology, especially if there is something that you are not very comfortable with or not very familiar. If you have done something a lot of times and you are just doing it again, then doing it once will also be okay. So talking about EVNG, as I mentioned, we will be using it on VMware, and topology is already set into the OVA. And recommended RAM for the first part, for the core topics, I would say 8 gig, but later we'll also do software defined networking and programmability. So if you have 16 gig at least, that will be perfect for the long term. So if, for example, Reinal, if you're planning to purchase like a second-hand PC or a laptop later, also make sure that you have at least 16 gig of RAM in that. Processor wise, even i5 is also okay. We don't need to go for i7 or i9, or if you're using any other kind of processor architecture, you can just make sure that you have adequate power. You don't need very powerful processor, but you do need more RAM because we actually boot up many devices. So what happens is that you see the email I sent you. You click on the Dropbox link, you download the OVA file. You import the OVA in VMware, and then once you import it, before you start the EVNG, you go to the settings and make sure that you set the memory according to your requirement, how much you have and how much you want to give it to the EVNG. Also, the network adapter, you might see two of them, network adapter and network adapter 2, but the first one must be set to net. It should be already set to net, but in case if you see something else, just click on it and change it to network address translation. Why? Because once you do that and then you boot EVNG, you will see that it will bring you to a CLI login screen of the backend Linux, and it will show you an IP address at the top. So we don't need to log into this Linux backend system. We actually use the GUI for all the topologies. So to open the GUI of EVNG after booting it, you need to open that IP address into the browser. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that I have already created a PDF file. I sent you already into the email also. That PDF file is called the EVNG setup. So that actually explains all the details, exactly what you need to do. For example, download the OVA file from the email I sent you. And you also need to have the VMware software installed. And then how exactly can you import the OVA? After importing the OVA, giving it some kind of name. Like here, I'm using the name CCIE lab just for example. So for you, you can give a name CCIE lab, right? So the logic is same. And then you will see it here appearing into the list of virtual machines. You click on it, don't open it. First, go to the edit virtual machine settings. And as I was mentioning, after you do that, you will see that we have to set the memory and the network adapter according to our requirement. Also, we can actually go to the processor and check the virtualized Intel VT. So this actually makes your devices, nested devices, perform better. But some computers, like some Microsoft computers, they have their own hypervisor installed, right? Hyper-V. So it doesn't work. Like if you check this box, as I'm recommending, and then you try to boot the EVNG, it doesn't boot up. So in that case, you can uncheck it again. So you can see the note. If the booting fails and you see an error, come back and uncheck this mark and try again. Then it should actually work. In some cases, that may be the issue there. Once you boot it, you will see a CLI login, as I was mentioning, is the Linux backend login screen, but you don't need to log in here. You just need to note down the IP that you see. In your case, it may be a different IP, and you just need to open it into a browser, right? So open in any browser. Again, you don't need to log in here. Just note down the IP after you boot it and open it in the browser. So once you open it into the browser, you will see a login screen, something like this, EVNG emulated virtual environment login. And here the username and password are admin and EU. So you mentioned that native console is okay. Just click on sign in. And once you do that, you will actually see the list of topologies that we are going to use. And you can click on a topology and open it. And from there onward, you will be able to configure it, right? So when you click on a particular topology, you have the open button here. You click on open, and that will open the topology, something like this. Now, again, this is the example topology. It's from CCNA class. You will have a different topology, as I was mentioning earlier. But yeah, once you do that, you can actually start all nodes, stop all nodes, wipe all nodes, basically to go back to the base config. This you should do after finishing every lab so that the topology is cleaned for the next lab, right? So if you save anything new, that will be gone. It will go back to the base config again if you do the wipe all nodes. Also, once you start all the devices, you should be able to click on the device to open the PuTTY session automatically. If that's not happening, if you click on the device and nothing happens, it doesn't open the PuTTY for you, then you can actually do the point number 10 and 11, which is basically you can click on the device to open the PuTTY terminal. If it doesn't open, you will need to install the EVNG Windows client pack after downloading it from the below link, or you can download the EVNG Mac client pack if you are using the Mac OS. Again, you can do a quick Google search for Mac client pack and you will see a free link from EVNG and you can download that. Once you install it, like if you're using Windows machine, you need to go to the C program files EVNG folder and double click on this exact file. This is a registry file. When you install, it will link the PuTTY software to your browser. So now after this, when you boot the device and click on it, you will be able to see the console coming up. You will be able to see the PuTTY session opening up. Just to show you this as an example, for example, here, yeah, you can see that I have already booted the 02 lab OVA and it actually leaves me to this CLI. You can see, I can see some IP address here, 79.137, and it is showing me a login screen. So this is the backend Linux login. I don't need to log in here. I just need to boot it, note down this IP, and then minimize it. And then go to any choice of your browser. And in the browser, just open that IP that I just note down, 192.168.79.137. And when you do that, you come to this login screen, right? As I was showing you into the PDF. So admin and EU, username and password, sign in. Now, generally, you should go to the list of topologies. But if you see a topology already opens like this, that means you must have opened this topology earlier and you just close the browser without closing it. So you can just go to the on this left-hand side menu and go to the close lab. In case if it says that cannot close lab because some devices are still running, you can go to the more actions, stop all nodes, and then you can click on close lab. So then it will bring you to the list of topologies that we are going to use. Now, of course, the OVA that I sent you will not show you so many topologies because I was playing around, checking some things. I created some topology as well. Mostly what you will see is the base lab. So base lab is what we will use for most of the layer 3 practicals for EIGRP, OSPF, PGP, QoS, IPv6, DMVPN, MPLS, multicasting, NET, all these things we will do with the same topology. So base lab is very important one. If you click on open, you will see it is the same topology I was showing you into this diagram earlier. This is the base topology, right? The 8 routers with IP addressing and all. So we'll use base topology for most of the layer 3 protocols. But for layer 2, every week I will send you the layer 2 lab and I'll tell you which topology to open, like CDP or Ether channel or MAC addresses or multiple spanning tree protocol or span rspan. So all these things I will actually send you according to the requirement, like VLANs or VTP or switching STP. So for layer 2 part, we will have different topologies, but most of the layer 3 core technologies, we will have the same topology base lab because we just need to practice different routing protocols, right? So again, this is something you can set up this week. And if you have any issue, contact me and then we can try to fix it. As I mentioned earlier, no worries. I'm here to help you with that. But yeah, once it is done, you are good to go. So what exactly is expected from your side? Just show up every week. Consistency is the key because you build upon the topics from the last week. So if you are consistent into joining the program, it will help you a lot, and it will also give you a purpose to do the labs, right? Do the labs, of course. That's the second thing. And of course, you are actually encouraged to ask questions. As many questions as you have, feel free to ask. No question is difficult enough, or no question is dumb enough. Every question is something that you thought about and you need the answer. And I will provide you the answer if I know about it. Otherwise, we will find the answer together if I don't know about it, right? So basically, it's a good thing to ask questions, and that way your brain learns faster. And yeah, be consistent. When you show up every week, you are being consistent. So that's all you need. That's all needed from your side. So a little bit about myself. My name is Arpit Pandit. I have roughly slightly more than now 20 years of network training experience. I started with Microsoft, then I also taught Juniper courses, Linux courses, and Cisco. Of course, I did CCNA, CCNP, then CCIE in routing and switching, and also CCIE in service provider. So I have two CCIs, more than 12 years now, experience of CCI training itself. So I actually like it a lot because this is something which gives me a lot of joy to explain concepts and make sure that you become comfortable with the newer technologies or important technologies. As I mentioned, I have two CCIs, routing, switching, and service provider. And also, you will see that I also have a lot of practical experience from the consultation work. So I do consultation work, freelance work, uh, and some attachment with some service providers to give some insights, whether to onboarding new customers, analyzing new SD-WAN technologies to implement, or managing the backend or the backbone of the network, which is mostly Juniper. So you will see that I do include every now and then some of the insights from there into the courses so that it helps us to understand the latest trends as well. Right. So having said that, let's get started. Thank you so much. And we will start the first session from next week. So it was just an introduction today. That's why it's a smaller session. But of course, from next week, we will have the full session with the theory and the lab part, as I was explaining. So go ahead and download the OVA this week and contact me if you have any issue in setting up. You can follow the EVNG setup PDF that I also sent you in the email. So if you have any issue with that or any problem, feel free to contact me or Christian, and we'll be more than happy to help you from that point.